The Brazilian Shirt Name Podcast with Dotun Adebayo and Tim Vickery.
Yeah, and welcome to the Global Soccer Interactive. We do this every Wednesday at 4 p.m, so hit that subscribe button so you never miss it. It's your chance to have your say on the big football stories from the last week. We welcome your contributions and your calls. As always, we're joined by the legendino, who is Tim Vickery in Rio. Tim, suitably suited and booted.
And yeah, never any doubt, was there?
No, never. On my part, there was never, ever any doubt. And equally suited and booted is our good old friend, Joe Gould from the Window podcast straight out of Ohio. Joe, good evening. Good morning.
Good evening. Good to be back. Thanks for having me on.
Absolute pleasure. What is that shirt you got on?
Jamaica.
It's not bad for Jamaica, is it?
I mean, not bad at all.
Yeah, they're not going to win anything, but they're going to look great. And the now late, very sadly, Alan Skilly Cole, who died on Tuesday, Jamaica's greatest ever footballer, would be proud of those colours. Yeah, I got the news just a few hours ago. Alan Skilly Cole, good friend of Bob Marley, mentor of the House of Dread in Jamaica, but also the first Jamaican player to play in Brazil, Tim. So you know a thing or two about Alan Skilly Cole as well.
Yes, and how nice that he's being honoured by the shirt that Joe is wearing today. Gone, but not forgotten. Joe, I find it fascinating, this FIFA window coming just after the transfer window. And you know what? It makes me love the FIFA window all the more. Because the transfer window, there's this sense, and I have to include my club in this, of real entitlement, you know, that we should be signing the best players in the world. They should all be coming to us. We want them. Send them. We deserve them. We can pay for them. And the FIFA window is the opposite of that, isn't it? They all go back from whence they came, and it's the only chance that the home public gets to see the talent that they've produced in competitive matches. And I think that makes a lot of people moan about it, the FIFA window, and more people moan about it than don't. Yeah. But I think there's a line that we can hold here, you know, because if Alan Skilly Cole was alive today and playing for Jamaica today, the only chance that a Jamaican audience would have to really see him in a competitive environment would be in the World Cup Qualifiers in Jamaica's home games at I think what they call the office.
Yep, that's right. That's absolutely right. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think there's something special about players being able to come home and and play in front of the people that they have decided to represent. I think that's a really special thing.
Look, I won't deny that Tim has a point there. Typically Southern Hemisphere point, I might add. What I would like to say about this
you're a child of Africa. Surely you rejoice in Lookman from South London. Surely you rejoice in him going back to play for Nigeria.
Listen, we'll talk about Nigeria in a moment. I'm sure Joe can't wait to tell us about the woes of that once great footballing nation. However, the thing I always moan about when it comes to the international, I will say, is a way of unifying people in disparate parts of the world where people are dissatisfied, unhappy, or whatever it might be. The national team always is able to rally people around a cause. But when we look at it from the privilege of our safe European homes, can't help wondering why those players never play as well for their national teams as they do for their club teams. Is that a consistent moan that you've heard?
Yeah. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that you're only with your national team for a very limited space. So when you're playing club, you develop relationships with those other players. You understand how they move. You understand how they think. with the national team setup, you have to do that super quick. You have to be able to adjust and try to make a connection with your fellow teammates in the space of 10 days, basically, where you have 2 games in that span most of the time. So yeah, it's understandable, I think, because of that, like the ability to make those adaptations on the fly is a key element to being able to represent your national team.
I think there's a bit of a trick as well, Tim. Talking to Joe from the window without really explaining to people what the window is. It's a podcast, as I've said, yeah, but it's a international. By international, Joe covers football in every single country on the planet. It makes you look like child's play. What you've got to do, Tim.
10 nations. He's got
10,
200.
is that all? Yeah, well, and the funny thing is that he does seem to cover all 200 nations. It's rarely a question that he'll be asked that he won't be able to answer. Anyway, that is for our listeners and viewers to test out. And feel free, all the details are on the screen, as you can see, of how you can join in this conversation. And helpfully, the window has got a little World Cup graph for us that we can look at as to how, here it is, yep, great. Explain this, talk me through how this graph works, what the flags that we're looking at and in which order, Joe?
Yeah, so we are keeping track, obviously monitoring all the nations who've qualified for 2026 next summer. So this is just explaining who is officially qualified for the competition. You've got the 3 hosts to start out, Mexico, USA, and Canada. And then we've been filling in all the different spots as they qualify. So we have it broken down by confederation. AFC is Asia, CAF, that's Africa, CONCACAF, that's North, Central America, and the Caribbean. Used to say CONMEBOL on there, that's South America. They're completely done now, as I'm sure Tim will talk about shortly. Oceania is in there as well. New Zealand, the lone representative, because of their one official spot now. UEFA is completely empty. Nobody's qualified from UEFA yet, but that will start to fill in next month, most likely. And then at the bottom there, bottom right, you'll see 2 playoff spots. There's an interconfederation playoff that will occur in Mexico. I believe it's in the March window of next year. And there will be, 6 teams that will compete in that. The top 2 nations who qualify for that interconfederation playoff will be seeded. They will miss the first round, so they get a bye, and the other 4 teams will be drawn together in the first round, and whoever wins those games will play the seeded team, and whoever wins that match will go 1 on each side. So there's 2 spots. Will go to the World Cup.
Yeah. I think that's well summed up. There's one thing, very quickly, Tim, you know what we're like here in Blighty. We're looking at that thinking, well, look, I know not officially, but England have surely qualified. We just beat Serbia 5-0. Let's come to that in just a moment. Because before we get going, I want to remind everybody that this show will be available as a podcast a few hours after the live stream here on YouTube. And if you're watching live and you've got something to say, please feel free to jump backstage with the link in the comments and come on, have a chat with us. I also want to tell you that the Brazilian shirt name has teamed up with CALM, CALM, which is the campaign against living miserably, to take part in the charity's Stay Tuned campaign this September. We're aiming to raise money towards the charity's efforts to prevent suicide. And if you can donate, please do. The link is in the episode description across our socials as well. Thank you for that. So, England 5, Serbia 0. Go on. I don't want to be jingoistic, so I'm going to give you the opportunity of reminding people that in 1814, the Battle of New Orleans took place, and those English got a good hiding from the Americans, but not from the Serbians, crucially.
I think historically, this match has been one that has been really fierce. A lot of tight games. That was not the case this time around. I think You have to look at Serbia. You have to look at their squad. It's very good on paper. It's very good. Definitely, definitely one of the. It's definitely up there in Europe for sure. But I think there's questions surrounding tactics. I think there's questions surrounding the manager. He likes to select the same players over and over again. There are players who are playing well in various leagues that are not getting looks that could be an asset to the team. So yeah, really disappointing for Serbia, I think, at home to get slapped around like that. But solid result for England. That they went there with a job to do, and they absolutely got it done. So England's looking really good. It's highly likely that we'll see them punch their ticket next month in the October window. So England looking good. Serbia definitely has work to do. I think it's likely that Serbia will see them in the playoff.
Yeah, England, Tim. I'm sure you can hear the echo from over here. We're gonna win the cup. We're gonna win the cup. E-I-A-D-O. We're gonna win the cup.
Yeah, I would wait for the draw. The draw, I think, in this World Cup is going to be so important, really important, because there's such a discrepancy of conditions. There's some of the stadiums in the States will be air conditioned, others not, in extreme heat. So where you play, at what time you play, how much you have to travel between games. That's going to be such an important part of the logistics. Are going to be so important in terms of winning the World Cup. But for now, the focus obviously is on who's going to make it. And Joe, with this expansion, looks to me from afar as if the European qualification is, not particularly interesting, unless the occasional big fish in problems. Looking around the world with the expansion, which continent qualification process do you find most interesting?
Yeah, I think you have to look at Africa. Has been really interesting this time, just because there's an opportunity for some new faces. Maybe less so than Asia. Asia has been really interesting. They didn't have anything this window. They pick back up in October, and they have 2 automatic spots left to claim. There's 2 groups of 3. They're gonna duke it out against each other in the October window. So that'll be really fascinating. I guess quick side note, Qatar had 3 friendlies in this window, and they lost 2 of them and drew 1 of them, and do not look good going into next month. And they're in a group with UAE and Oman. Oman took 4th place at the CAF Nations Cup, which is the Central Asian Confederation, and so they had their big tournament this window, and they lost to India in penalties, which was really surprising. So Oman jury's out a little bit, and then also in that group is UAE. UAE had 2 friendlies this month, looked really good. So UAE is an interesting story because they've naturalized so many players. I mean, half their team is Brazilian heritage or Argentine heritage. So really interesting storyline going on there. We'll see what ends up happening. But the Asian qualification has thrown up some great storylines. Obviously, Jordan, Uzbekistan. I think the other one you have to look at is CONCACAF, my region. We're in the last round now that kicked off this window, and it's already throwing up some surprises. Jamaica's looking really strong. They're in an all Caribbean group, which is a lot of fun in the first place, but they look really good right now. I want to give a special mention to Bailey Catamarteri. Plays at Sheffield Wednesday. He was absolute class for Jamaica this window. This was his first call up for them. Young player, but he's electric. He was fantastic. So really solid addition by them.
Is that his old man, Catamarteri, who used to play for Everton, came on storming with his dreadlocks, etc., as a winger for Everton back in the day? Do you remember? Is that his old man?
I think so. I think so. I'd have to go back and double check, but I think
it might be. What was Catamarteri's first name again? I can't remember what his first name was, but he was electric. Your very word. I saw his first match for Everton, and I just remember him just like nobody could catch him. He was amazing on the right wing, as I call, so sort of inside right. but he used to fly down that wing like nobody's business and scored as well. I think the younger Cadamarteri scored a brace, was it, for Jamaica this time? His first goal or two for Jamaica, was it?
Yep, just one yesterday, but he also got an assist in that game as well against Trinidad. So, yeah, good, really good start for him. And in their first match, they against Bermuda, Jamaica.
Danny, sorry to cut you off. Danny Cadamarteri was his old man.
Has anyone ever used the expression "he scored a brace" outside dreadful football reports? Has anyone used it in speech? How'd you go? And I scored a brace. Has anyone ever used it? I've never heard it.
Mate, you should be asking Joe why he just used. They're going to duke it out, I like that one. Duke of Earl, Duke. Anyway, sorry,
yes,
Joe,
yes.
cut you.
He's going to say World Cup in a minute. It's coming.
Yeah, of course he is. Yeah. The emphasis is important. It is World Cup. I mean,
World
Cup.
Cup.
Why stress the
World
cup?
Cup.
I mean, I got a cup here. You're not going to stress the cup. You're going to, that's the World Cup. Okay, I get you.
World Cup.
So also in that group with Jamaica, you have Curacao, and they actually are one that we are really excited for. Not sure that they'll pip Jamaica for that top spot in the group. I think we're looking more likely second place and potentially heading to that intercontinental playoff as one of the CONCACAF representatives. But they've brought a lot of fresh faces into their squad recently, including this window. They had like 4 or 5 new guys, including Tahith Chong, who just signed for Sheffield United. And he's already got the name Son of Curacao. And he was fantastic. He scored a brace yesterday. There we go. Scored a brace yesterday, got an assist, looked really good in their first game as well. So yeah, Curacao is looking good at the moment for a bit of a surprise. So yeah, I think CONCACAF is going to throw up some fun surprises for us as well. Just briefly in terms of some of the other teams in CONCACAF this window, like it was really a surprise window for Honduras. They lead their group, which is shocking because they're in a group with Costa Rica. And we thought for sure that Costa Rica would be taking top spot in that group, and they still might. There's a lot left to play for, but Honduras comes out of this window with the 4 points. Costa Rica only gets 2, which is very surprising. Those two haven't played each other yet. That will happen next month, so that's a clash that we're looking forward to. Also, I think you have to talk about Suriname. Suriname is leading Group A right now. That group includes Panama, so it's a bit of a surprise. Panama definitely the favorite in that group, but Suriname drew them 0-0 at their house in what is it, Tim? Is it Paramaribo? Is that it? I can't remember it anyways.
That's not Tim's region, mate.
It is. It used to be.
It used to be part of Colombia until Joe's people came down and thought, that canal business, we want some of that. How can we do that? We'll make Panama break away from Colombia. So it's not my region anymore. You've sailed it away, Joe. You've taken it from us.
That's right. But back to Suriname, just fantastic window for them. They got that draw against Panama. It's a huge result for them. And then they went to San Salvador and got a win, which is huge. To get a win on the road in San Salvador is big time. So yeah, Suriname has had a really good start. We'll see if they can keep it going. Panama's faced the other 2 teams in the group, Suriname, and then they also faced, oh my gosh, who am I? Guatemala, I think. And so they've had a tough start. We'll see what they can do in October. So, yeah, CONCACAF is looking fun right now. Only 6 matches in this round, so it's going to go fast. We're already a third of the way through, and some interesting storylines coming out, including with Costa Rica. Everybody, I'm sure the whole nation is up in arms right now. 2-point window is not good, and the federation took so long to hire Miguel Herrera because they really wanted to make the right decision. And right now, it's not looking so hot. So it's really, really been wild.
What I love about this, even as you're telling the story, I'm sure everybody watching and listening will be thinking, wow, the World Cup is taking us to parts of the world that we've only ever heard about and dreamed about. And wondered, Suriname, where's that? In that sort of who are they voice.
It's actually South America, Suriname. That is,
No,
it's on the
I
South
know.
America mainland.
I know. Do you know, like you learned all the teams in South America by playing Subbuteo? Well, I'm not saying that I went to a better school than you. No, I wouldn't dream of saying that. However, I learned all the names through reading Henri Charrier's Papillon. The great,
right, yes.
the book of The Great Escape
Yeah.
from Devil's Island in South America. So I think he traversed through Suriname, and Curacao certainly features there because Curacao was part of Venezuela, wasn't it? I think that's what you said a moment or two ago. Anyway, that's how so I'm hearing you and I'm thinking Steve McQueen and Dustin Hoffman in the dreadful film adaptation of the brilliant book, and there's all to play for. So thank you. There is one subcontinent that you haven't mentioned who might be thinking the World Cup. We'll have a bit of that. Because Scandinavia is a kind of a subcontinent, of its own. It's a peninsula, I know, but nevertheless. And in Norway, they must be singing "Vi ska vinna Världscupen, vi ska vinna Världscupen, adio, vi ska vinna Världscupen," because they did something remarkable.
And surely that provokes the Swedes to say "Håll käften." Surely,
yeah, of course it does. Håll käften and know your flipping place. 11 goals. What, you think you're something now? 11 goals. And what's his name? Only got 5 of them. No. They're going to win
Holland.
the cup, aren't they? Is that what his name is? I don't know. Whole Shefton.
Yeah. So I have 2 thoughts. So I'll try to spit them out. Sweden is interesting. They had a really shock loss to Kosovo in this window. Really surprising result there. They may not be all roses at the moment. Norway, it's looking really good. We have them, as you know, my fellow co-host crunches the numbers for us. He's got them at a 95.76% chance to qualify for the World Cup.
0.76.
95.76. Yeah.
0.76. Yeah, the 95. All right. The 0.76.
That's detail, mate. That's detail.
They're looking really good right now. There's they could qualify in the next window, I believe. So yeah, Norway's looking really good. And quick side note, Italy, they're lucky to come away with 3 points against Israel. I mean, that was one crazy game.
Cracking match. Yeah.
Crazy game. Yeah, really crazy. It was a fun watch for sure. If I may, I just want to go back to CONCACAF real quick. And I know we spent a lot of time on them, but I would feel so bad if we didn't mention Haiti, because last night, the reason why Costa Rica only came out with 2 points is because Haiti stormed back in that game to tie it 3-3. Haiti actually went up 3-2, and then Haiti's defense is their biggest issue. They let in a goal shortly after they scored the third, and then that's how it would end. So a lot of your listeners might be interested to know how Jean-Victor Bellegarde did, Wolves player at Wolverhampton. This was his first call-up for Haiti. They've been after him for years. Fantastic. He was wonderful. Really, really class for Haiti. Really great addition. We all knew he would be. It was just a matter of getting him into the team. Here he is, and he's proving his worth already. So, yeah, crazy.
Yeah, geopolitically, I think Haiti's defence is also crying out for some support and help. And is this remarkable then, Haiti's comeback, given the state of the nation at the moment, which many people would describe as in a state of anarchy?
I think it's more crazy given their opponent. Maybe not necessarily because of what's happening politically in their nation. It's positive for them for sure. I'm sure the nation is grasping onto the national team as a beacon of hope. Absolutely, But for Haiti to go to Costa Rica and get a point is big. Costa Rica is a tough place to play in San Jose. It's a tough place to go.
And the World Cup is tough for any small nation, Tim. Even though, as Joe says there, the success of the national team for a lot of countries, including Nigeria, a country of nearly 200 million people, would not only be a national rallying cry, but it would be the beacon of hope, as it were, for better times to come and so on. And yet we know, don't we, as much as like Jamaica, when they came to France 98, first time they'd been in the World Cup, and I was here in Britain, which has a large Jamaican population. You could argue once upon a time it did in any case, but all the Jamaicans or people of Jamaican heritage came out for that. It was great to see them at QPR Stadium. And we kind of knew that they were going to get battered, you know, all the way.
They didn't, and that I think is part of the problem, because it's a case of managing expectations. I mean, that they had I know him, Brazilian coach, Henry Simões, and he'd done a fantastic job there, really unbelievable job. But he'd oversold his project. He'd oversold the whole thing, and he was telling the Jamaican people that they had a chance of winning the thing. And so when they did find it hard, you know, they didn't have a bad tournament, but they got battered in one game against Argentina. They gave Croatia a decent game, and they beat Japan, which was a terrific result. So that wasn't bad. But the problem was that the expectations had been built so high that it was seen as a major disappointment, and Jamaican football suffered as a consequence. So I think it's absolutely vital that expectations are managed, because quite often players will say this: the first World Cup, it just passes. It's almost too much. The first game can pass them by. You know, they've lost the first game, and then you're fighting for your place in the tournament. You're fighting to stay alive in the tournament from very, very early on. So I think the whole thing of managing expectations is vital. Go on, Joe.
I think that's an interesting comment. And so I wanted to shift it back to you in terms of expectations. What's it like this morning in Venezuela?
Oh, God, yes. Yes. Yeah, because last night, Tuesday night, it was all about who's going to get the playoff spot. And it could be Venezuela and it could be Brazil. All the other qualifiers were sorted out. So Argentina qualified by a street, and Ecuador and Brazil had already joined them. And then on Thursday, what was the expression you used, Joe? Punched their ticket. Yeah. On Thursday, Paraguay, Uruguay, and Colombia punched their ticket. So what we had left on Tuesday was who's going to get the playoff spot. And it was either Venezuela or it was Bolivia. And the ball's in Venezuela's court, because if they beat Colombia, they're in. And, you know, there's a hope maybe that Colombia, after qualifying on Thursday, have been on the fizzy pop. So maybe that's gonna help them over the line. Bolivia, if Venezuela don't win, Bolivia can win, can claim that place by beating Brazil. At the extreme altitude, they don't play at La Paz anymore. They play above La Paz, El Alto, where the airport is 4,100 meters above sea level. It's very, very difficult for unacclimatized opponents. Well, that was a tight game, and Bolivia won it on a VAR penalty that's a little bit iffy. Plenty in Brazil said, yeah, it probably was a penalty. It's the kind of penalty you get in Brazil, but you probably wouldn't get it in Europe. So it's all up to Venezuela. And Venezuela start off, they're 1-up after 3 minutes. They're 2-1 up after 12 minutes. They're unbeaten at home. It's been a terrific home record. But the pressure of, you know, the gates of paradise are there. And winning is hard, I think. If you're not used to it, winning is really, really hard. And they were unable to keep that balance between attack and defence when Colombia made it 2-2, and they just got picked up off the break. They ended up. It sounds like a score for the first set, because they ended up losing 6-3. But unfortunately, it's the only set. You know, it's a game of one set. So Venezuela are out, and four players and Big Rondon, you know, the centre forward, their all-time top goal scorer, a former Premier League player. And that's
Playing
it for
in La
him
Liga.
now. Yeah, yes, back in La Liga now. That's it for him. That's it, you know. And I think he's been a little. He did score one last night, but he's not quite what he was, and he's not going to be around in 4 years' time. I think it's hard to see.
Right.
They've still got players there coming through. And a few years ago, they got through to the final of the Under-20 World Cup when they lost to England, and that generation are still coming through. But that was such a huge disappointment. They didn't win a single game away from home. And that's something that they have to look at. They were unbeaten at home until last night. And I think the pressure of victory was just too much for them. Too much. So yes, that's that was just watching the players, especially the older players on the field. At the end, when the final whistle has just gone in the Brazil-Bolivia game, and it's all that was hard. That was hard.
Yeah.
But you always suspected with the expansion that Bolivia would pick up enough points at home to get in. Amazingly, because Bolivia lost 8 of their 9 away games. Amazingly, they managed to win in Chile, and it's those 3 points they won in Chile that have tipped the balance and got them over the line.
Yep.
Yeah, you're watching the Global Soccer Initiative. Brazilian Shirt Name Podcast is what we call our pod. You can join in. It's interactive. So if you feel like joining in, do go to the comments section and click on the link there and come and join us live. We've got a couple of questions. You can leave questions there as well. This one from Joe. It's very pleasing to see many of the Caribbean nations finally taking advantage of their footballing diaspora.
Caribbean or Caribbean? We've had both pronunciations already today.
Well, there's only one that's correct. There's several that are incorrect. Like, did I ever tell you about the 3 restaurants in Tooting in South West London, who were 3 Caribbean restaurants right next to each other? Sometimes they're like that. And they all spelled Caribbean in a different way. And none of them got it right. Not one of them got it right. And it's a true story. In those days, I never had a camera or mobile phone to take the pictures. Probably last time I saw that was about 1992, because I was going about touting our books, the Express books at the time. Anyway, it's very pleasing to see many of the. Can I say it now in the English way, or
choose your weapon?
Let's go American. I'll tell you why we're going American, because this is the story about the Battle of New Orleans, which was fit between the Yankees, of course, and their English people, in which the British came off rather ignominiously. And if you can spell that or pronounce it, you're doing better than me. So let's go for. It's very pleasing to see many of the Caribbean. So how do you say
Caribbean?
It again?
Caribbean. Yeah. It makes sense because it's named after the
Caribbean.
Caribs. The Caribs were, so Caribbean kind of makes sense.
Indigenous. Well, Caribbean also makes sense because there were the Caribs. You're absolutely right. The indigenous people of Jamaica, of the Caribbean. Although the Arawaks specifically were the Jamaicans. They're the Arawaks. You ought to know this from Burning Spear. Christopher Columbus is a damn blasted liar. He's saying that he's the first one who discovered Jamaica. What about the Arawak Indians? And the few black men who were there before him. I mean,
the question there, many of the Caribbean nations finally taking advantage of their footballing diaspora. That's a big thing that Jamaica did in '98, isn't it? So it's not. Are more nations doing it now, Joe? And do you agree that Jamaica would have huge symbolic power in England?
Yeah, I think so. I think I agree with that. And yes, there are a lot of CONCACAF nations in the Caribbean that are taking advantage of that for sure. That's kind of a trend that we're starting to see worldwide, actually. But for over here, there's such a rich potential with that, and there are even countries that are not in World Cup qualifying any longer, like St. Lucia. Even Bermuda. Bermuda's still in World Cup qualifying. I think there's a goalkeeper. I can't remember the club. But it's either championship level or Premier League. I think whatever the club is in the championship. Anyways, there's definitely players out there that if these federations can convince the players to play for them, could absolutely boost the squad. I think the other piece too, especially in the Caribbean, is the level of coaching. It's good coaches will attract better players, but because of financials and with these smaller Caribbean nations, I think it's hard for them to attract better coaches sometimes, but better coaches can attract better players. So it's interesting how it's all connected like that.
Yeah, like I say, join in the conversation if you like. Go into the comments section and click on the link there and come in. And it's a brilliant time, actually, to bring a Nigerian perspective into this conversation, because there is it's now an annual thing, a Nigeria Reggae Boys Clash hosted in London, because of course that's where the money is, and there are so many fans from both sides of that divide, if you like. So many fans in the UK. So it can't be. I think they call it. They've got a name for it. You know, it's not El Clasico. It's El, I don't know, Argumentito, because the Nigerian part of it is, you know, what we've handed over to Jamaicans. We've made them as argumentative as we are in Nigeria. Anyway, never mind me telling you all.
No, you haven't.
Oh, we've done it in Brazil as well, Tim. Don't worry. Where do you think those African Brazilians come from? It's not Nigeria. Atolani Oyewumi is with us, who's our football correspondent. He joins us on World Football Phone In sometimes. Great to see you live and direct, Atolani. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. What is it in Nigeria? No, can't hear you. Can't hear you.
It's silence o'clock in Nigeria. That is, I think, quite a powerful metaphor for quite a power. Atolani's silence. It's a powerful metaphor for the current state of the Nigerian football team. Explain yourself.
Yeah, they haven't given us much to smile about at the moment. It's been quite catastrophic, to be honest.
It's shameful. Oh, it is shameful.
Because you're thinking that. As soon as I read, right, the expansion of the World Cup, 48, you're thinking, well, that's it. You know, Nigeria are booked in, bed and breakfast. But Nigeria, they're finding a way to grab defeat from the very jaws of victory. How are they doing it?
Atolani, anytime this week, if you'd like to join us, and I'm only kidding.
Yeah, how it does need a pause, I think. It needs pause for thought, that one.
Yeah, I know. How are Nigeria, like Tim says, snatching defeat from the jaws of victory?
Funny enough, sorry, my connection's been god-awful. It's actually not defeat we're snatching. We just can't help but draw. We've played 8 qualifiers and we've drawn 5 games. The only team we've beaten in a 6-team pool is Rwanda. Without Rwanda, we'd be in dire straits. Benin beat us for the first time in their history. We drew with South Africa twice because they decided to make their pitch a rugby pitch and just stop us from playing any sort of coherent football, and fair play to them. They're entitled to do that. Although they did field an ineligible player back in March and yet haven't been punished for it. Yeah. So I think personally, CAF has got to do a better job. FIFA, whoever you want to blame, they need to lay down the law a lot firmer. But yeah, we can't. I'm not going to blame refs, blame anything other than ourselves. We've been completely underwhelming, multiple managers throughout the qualifiers, and nothing has really clicked.
Yeah, he that is a good point. CAF has some questions that need to be answered here, like as you mentioned, the ineligible player back in March, but also, you know, what are they going to do with the last place finishes? You know, there's talk about results of second place teams against last place teams in the group getting scrapped. You know, those are just rumors, nothing official, but you know, there are some things that still need to be answered in Africa. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting finish for sure.
I wonder. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it feels like selective judgment, because if you look at the case of Emilio Nsu, he scores 2 winning goals for Equatorial Guinea, but because he wasn't eligible for them when he first declared for Spain in whether 2005 or a long ass time ago, excuse the French, they then forfeit 2 games and lose both of them 3-0. But in this case, higher profile country, they haven't done anything. So it seems like they just choose who to punish and when to let things slide. So the inconsistency is frustrating everybody.
Yeah, you can speak French on this program. Thankfully, it's not the BBC where you have to stick to the English. So feel free to bring in some French. How are football fans in Nigeria taking this? Because on the one hand, all we are asking.
What's the argument? What's the argument? There has to be an argument. So what's the argument?
I think for once there's genuine unity, because everyone. The only indecision is who to blame. Some people blame the players. Some people say it can't be the players. Some people blame the managers, but some people say we've had multiple managers, whether it's Finidi George, Eric Chow, and nothing is working. The setup I could go on for a long time. There was a lot of head loss yesterday because it was as if the fans knew what it meant. We were up for it, but they weren't. There was a lack of urgency as much as anything, because you can excuse a lack of quality in certain areas. But Nigeria have some of the best quality in Africa. We're a pot one team, and we're the only pot one team that is not going to qualify, which is embarrassing. There are 9 pot one countries, and we are the only one not set to qualify. So everyone is so disappointed that the biggest World Cup ever, and it's almost guaranteed we won't be there, because even with the right now there are 9 pots. The winners of each one goes through automatically, and then the second place teams duke it out. We're not even second, and to get second will be a miracle, and it's whoever gets the most points. We're on 14. Countries like Cape Verde are on 19. Madagascar are up there as well. So you can't really make the argument that we'll make it in any capacity. So there is no argument at the moment. Everyone's just dejected. Obviously, we'll support till the wheels fall off, and everyone's sort of turning their eyes towards Morocco 2026, which is the African Cup of Nations, because we came second last time, losing to Cote d'Ivoire in the final. So it's a case of, okay, if we can go and win that, we'll feel a little bit better. It won't paper over it's sort of putting a plaster on a surgery wound. It's not quite the same as making it to a World Cup, but we haven't won the African Cup of Nations since 2013. So it would be very uplifting, considering we've lost in the semis and final.
Are there massive regional tensions? That we should be picking more people from this part of the country or more people from that part of the country. Is that an internal question?
It's an interesting one you mentioned. I think the biggest one I've seen recently is that with Osimhen injured, Tolu should play, the Wolves striker that they've just signed. He should be the one playing. But in terms of regional tensions, I'd say it was much worse 2013, the days of Onazi, Sunday Mba, Ahmed Musa, where it was more controversial selections. Nowadays, there isn't as much selection headache. And yet Eric Chelsea seems to still make some mistakes. There's debates between who should be holding the midfield next to Iwobi. Should it be on Didi? Should it be on Yeka? There's a young centre-back who's on loan from Brentford. I've just forgotten his name, Frederick. Can't remember Frederick's first or last name, but he's played exceptionally well in the last game. And then this game, Troost Ekong's brought in, and he just happens to score an own goal. And yes, he's the captain, but it's just not great optics when a system works. We get a 1-0 win against Rwanda, you change it, and the person you bring in then scores the own goal. You shoehorn Bassi to left back to bring him back in, and then he scores an own goal, and that's the difference at the end of the day. And again, I can't blame refereeing, because our goal shouldn't have stood. To be honest, Bassi headed it onto Dest as it hit a hand in there, but the lack of VAR essentially, or lack of use of VAR, meant that we did get away with it, but it won't count for anything now. But I wouldn't say there's tensions within the country, at least.
But even some of those players that you mentioned there, apologies, Joel, I'll give over to you in a moment. Even some of the players that you mentioned there, you're thinking some of them are household names. You haven't even mentioned Ademola Lookman yet. Nigeria's got a decent squad of players if they can only make it click. Okay, you lose Osimhen, but you've got other strikers you mentioned already. And in terms of strength in depth, in a way, I feel the World Cup without Nigeria is a loss for all football lovers, because we bring something special to the World Cup. The fans bring something special to the World Cup. The players bring something remarkable to the World Cup. We like to dribble and show our skills on the world stage so that we get a big transfer afterwards. That's what we love to do, and we do it really well. So in some respects, we're like the Scotland of the World Cup. There's no world, as the Scottish would say, no World Cup without Scotland. And it feels though that we are how many times bigger than Scotland in Nigeria? Is it 40 or 50 times bigger than Scotland, mate? Where are all the great footballers of Nigeria when it comes to a World Cup? Where are they?
It's incredibly frustrating, because as you mentioned, even from the cultural aspect, look at the kit. 2018, everybody loved that night kit. It became a cultural icon, essentially. And then 2022, we missed. And okay, you can miss one World Cup. Even Italy missed World Cups. But then you're missing another one back-to-back, the biggest ever. And it's a real kick in the teeth, especially when we're essentially a local champion. We're supposed to be an African giant, and we're not living up to that billing. And in terms of, you talked about Lookman, this is somebody that won Africa CAF Player of the Year. And yet for Nigeria, he's being moved out of position to accommodate Moses Simon, who is just the epitome of pace and power and has no European pedigree the way Ademola Lookman has, who scored a hat-trick in a European final, and yet we're moving him out of position. And obviously football within the continent operates very differently. You could bring 2018 France to African Cup of Nations and they would not be outstanding. They would genuinely struggle. Not to say they wouldn't win, but it's just a completely different game. And Nigeria is blessed in terms of talent, but unfortunately that talent is concentrated into the same positions. We have a lot of strikers, a lot of wingers. There's still Samuel Chukwueze. It will be once upon a time as a winger. Now he's more of a creative presence in the middle. There was Kelechi Iheanacho. Ahmed Musa's beyond his time now. There's Paul Onuachu. There are a lot of attacking players. And then further down the pitch, it doesn't really... We're sort of looking, not scraps, that's disingenuous to say scraps, but other than positions like right back, but Olaino's Istanbul, Nwabali in goal, we're sort of looking around and saying, okay, who can we fit in? How can we make this work? And I don't want to make excuses because there are inferior countries who have less talented players who manage to make it work. But sometimes we saw this with England in their golden generation. Having the personnel in the same areas sometimes is to the detriment of the team because you end up shoehorning players in because, oh, you can't leave out Scholes, you can't leave out Gerrard, you can't leave out Lampard. Then they're not actually the best player for those positions.
I just wanted to add, so again, us with the numbers, we give Nigeria a 4% chance to make it to the World Cup right now. So,
exaggeration, isn't it?
Is that around 4% or is that 4
I rounded
points?
it for you, Tim. I rounded it for you. I rounded it up. Yes.
It's actually 3 point something.
Yeah, it's 3 point. Yeah, it's okay. Fine. If you want to be specific, 3.79.
Oh,
3.79. So, yeah, and yeah, just going back to what Atolani said earlier. You know, the second place playoff spot right now is like their only hope, and that's not even looking very good at the moment because first of all, they don't occupy second place in their group. That's Benin. And in order to get to the playoff in that second place playoff, you have to be in the top 4 of all the second place teams in Africa. There's 9 groups. And right now, Benin's in 8th place out of 9 out of all of those second place spots. So, you know, it's tough. You've got the likes of Gabon, Madagascar, DR Congo, Burkina Faso, Cameroon, even Uganda and Namibia are ahead of Benin right now in that group in terms of points. So, you know, they're in a really tricky spot right now. Like they've got Lesotho away, Nigeria should be able to handle that. But then they have Benin at home, and Benin, as I just mentioned, is the team that is directly competing with them for that spot. So even if they were to win that game, there's no guarantee that they would have enough points to be in that second place. So yeah, it's just really looking tough, unfortunately, for Nigeria.
Let's bring somebody else into the conversation today. You might remember Kevin from last week, Tim. He joins us again now from Battersea in South London, indeed, and has got a question for you. Hello, Kevin. Come in. Sometime this week.
I fear he's tied up with a screaming kid.
He's just dropped off. But this is his question.
Yeah.
As you can see, can Tim tell me more?
Ben Brereton, or as he's become, Ben Brereton Diaz. This is more evidence of the globalization of football. This is an English striker who's played youth football for England. But Chile find out that he's got a Chilean grandmother. Okay. Now, Chile have been just absolutely desperate. I don't know how the news reached them, because I don't think being Chilean was a part of his identity. Certainly didn't speak the language, didn't speak any Spanish. And if you want to learn Spanish, Chile is the hardest place to do it. They're incomprehensible even to other South Americans, the Chileans. But they quite like that status that they have. Anyway, when Chile just finished bottom of the table in South America, and this is so the World Cup in the States, 10 years after they won the Copa America in the States, and they're not going to be there. It's very sad for them. You know, it's another World Cup that they've missed out on, and they have proved utterly unable to reproduce their golden generation. You know, of Alexis Sanchez and Arturo Vidal and a number of others. So they're looking around desperately for anyone to get in, and Ben Brereton was their man. So they called him up. He became rebranded as Ben Brereton Diaz, you know, to heighten the links. And you could see it because it really means something. They're one of those who I find it quite irritating, really, who they'll sing the national anthem, the Chileans, and when the music stops, they'll stand there, you know, and keep singing it a cappella with their hand on. You know, it's really important.
Brilliant. That's
Yeah,
brilliant.
well, I always think, get on with it, for crying out loud. But anyway,
It's
it's
like
important to them.
bubbles. It's like
So
bubbles, isn't it? It goes a cappella, and that's the crescendo.
that's it. Yeah. So you felt a bit sorry for him because he didn't know the language, and he's just kind of standing there, and everyone's there solemnly with their hand on their heart. But anyway, he gets into the team, and he runs around, and he's enthusiastic, and he gives them something else. But then they had a coach take over, Ricardo Gareca. You might remember him from taking Peru to 2018. Argentine coach, because he looks just like a rock roadie, really, from the 70s. He really does. He became a kind of cult personality because of that. And Gareca, whose entire career has been in South America, was a bit nonplussed by this whole thing of having this English guy in there. And I think Brereton was trying to learn the language, but it's his second language. And Gareca didn't really like it. Didn't really like having this, so he quite often he wouldn't bother picking him. And he would say, it just bothers me. I can't talk to him. It's South American can feel a long, long way away from the world sometimes, and certainly in the figure of Gareca. Anyway, Gareca got sacked. They've got a stand-in coach who's brought Ben Brereton back, but unfortunately, it hasn't worked very well because he's played the last couple of games, but he hasn't scored a goal in World Cup qualification, and Chile finished bottom of the table. So they haven't got anything competitive now until 2027. So we'll see if Ben Brereton Diaz is still around. There is, I suppose, the road travelled here by the Robledo brothers, who were born in Chile and then brought up in England. And I don't think they spoke Spanish. I think the mother was English, and ended up playing for Newcastle and being very successful for Newcastle, and then going back and playing for Chile, playing for the Chilean national team. So Ben Brereton Diaz is treading in illustrious footsteps of the Robledo brothers, and maybe he can be part of a Chilean rebirth. But it's sad to see what they were a decade ago and where they are now.
There's another example of that too, Tim. Another current example in Oliver Son as well, for Peru, who's a current Burnley player, and also he was born in Denmark.
Scandinavian, he's one of them Scandinavians, I think.
Yes, correct. Born in Denmark, but his grandma is from Peru, and so he's been playing. He played the whole cycle for Peru, pretty much. So,
is what he would say from a Danish perspective. But it does lead us into a wider conversation, though, about renationalisation in the football diaspora. Our producer, Mark, has just sent a message to us that you can see on the screen from Sivan. In case you didn't know, several diaspora players happened to be discovered by fans via Championship Manager game. A good example is the young husband brothers for the Philippines. That's your generation, Atolani. For goodness sake, this is real football. It's not a flipping game. Flipping up, trying to win the World Cup. Do you lot, your generation, literally go on Football Championship Manager to see who can qualify for which team that their grandparents may have had some minor connection to 150 years ago?
Hey, it all helps. It shows your other nationality. So I discovered Ross Barkley had Nigerian heritage through Football Manager back in 2014. I had to stop playing that game because I valued my degree and wanted to pass in university. Because you would just be pressing spacebar all day. It's very addictive. But on the note of renationalization, it's been a thing for a long time. Even Diego Costa from Brazil to Spain is an early example. And Mikel Obi the other day was very opinionated on it because he was like, he's tired of people seeing Nigeria as a second option, because a lot of players, Saka, Madueke, a lot of these guys are Nigerian or have Nigerian heritage and could easily play for Nigeria. When you look at the lack of infrastructure, you cannot blame them whatsoever for choosing England if they're good enough. And a lot of them hold out until the last possible opportunity, like Tosin, Adebayo now wants to come to Nigeria because it's fairly evident he's not making it into the England setup. You see Tuanzebe and Wan-Bissaka have gone to Congo now. And it's a tough one because for those countries, like, yes, we don't want to be treated as second-class citizens, but you are bringing a Premier League footballer to help our country who is undoubtedly going to have an impact. So you can either choose your pride or choose the likelihood of winning. It's a tough balance, but renationalization is always going to be a thing, I feel like.
I don't know how you see this, Joe, but for me, it feels like these national teams are forgetting that these young players, they do have a slightly different identity. The British players of Nigerian heritage, look, many times, and we've discussed this, me and Tim as well, many times you look at those players playing for England, some of them, and playing elsewhere in Europe as well, and think Nigeria could win this World Cup if all those players were actually playing for Nigeria, but they are Anglo-Nigerians. There is a slightly different idea, and perhaps it's more. I can't imagine what they go through, because Ross Barkley discovered his Nigerian heritage at the same time as we did. He discovered it. It wasn't that he knew he had Nigerian heritage. It was suddenly it emerged he had Nigerian heritage. And to be fair to him, he said, "Look, I'm very proud of that heritage. Very proud of it." Cole Palmer knew of his Jamaican heritage. Imagine if Cole Palmer was playing for the Reggae Boys now. We talked about the Reggae Boys at the beginning of this pod, Joe, and you're wearing their shirt, which, Atolani, you'll agree, this is the new Nigeria shirt, the Jamaicans. At least they're making it through, and they've got something to be proud of. But they took the sort of the success of the design from us, as you know. But these players aren't. We have to accept, don't we? In the global world that we live in, there will be American players that play for European teams because of heritage, and there will be European players that play for the USA because of heritage. That's who they are, a blend of at least two, if not more, countries.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, and I think I think a lot of these national teams now, I think the world is in a place where, at least from the team's perspective, when these players come in, they're very warm, very welcoming, and they find a place regardless of where they grew up or whatever the case may be. So yeah, it is true. There's a lot of examples, like even Jamaica. I feel like there's more examples that I should be thinking of right now than I'm able to. But of if
Ravel Morrison, no?
Right. Yeah. So, it's
Andre Gray, the former Burnley striker, Watford striker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those are the two off the top of my head.
Yeah, there's a heavy list of these players that could represent, if they came home, so to speak, would alter qualification in many different ways.
I'm glad you put the home in inverted commas, because where is home is another question for these players. But I think, though, Atolani, the Nigerian players deciding to opt for Nigeria, I think you totally nailed the problem, which is the organisation. Arguably, that's what's behind Nigeria's defeat, and it's organisation or lack of organisation or chaotic organisation for a generation and more. This isn't something that's just come overnight, Nigeria's lack of success in the World Cup. It's because the infrastructure has not been there. And dare I say, and you don't need to get into the politics, dare I say, it's symptomatic of a lot that should be better in Nigeria today. If we had the institutions that lasted more than a year or two, I was shocked when I went to Nigeria in 2010 that the Nigerian national anthem that I knew from growing up in the early 1960s, everybody looked at me. I went to a class in Lagos and all the kids looked at me and said, "Let's all sing the national anthem together." I went to their class first thing in the morning. These children, they all start singing something. I'm singing something else. I'm singing, "Nigeria, our home." You don't even know what I'm singing, do you?
No, I'm sure they're saying "Rise, O Compatriots."
That's if it's still the national anthem, because what
it's not actually. They've changed it in the last couple of years. So now it's funny you say that. I'm in your position now because I have no clue what this new national anthem is, because they've happened to change it in the last couple of years.
Is that not absolutely shocking? You were talking a moment or two ago about Brereton Diaz not being able to sing the Chilean national anthem. Imagine if Nigeria did get to the World Cup and played national anthem. How many of those footballers would know what the actual national anthem is now? We change our national anthem every few years, it seems. And I remember the John Redwood. You youngers won't remember John Redwood. He was a Conservative politician who was nominated. He used to call himself Dr. John Redwood once upon a time to show you, or Professor John Redwood or something like that, to show you that he was smarter than you. But then he decided to drop the title because it didn't go down well with voters, and he was just John Redwood. But he got nominated as Welsh Secretary because he had some kind of minor heritage, and that's a controversial post here. You can't just nominate somebody who's never been to Wales as Welsh Secretary. They demand at least a little bit of Borodar about it. And so he was at some event and it was being televised, and they were singing the national anthem. So to get out of it, because Welsh is an impenetrable language unless you grew up with it, to get out of it, he started saying, and moving his lips for the camera and shaking his head as if he knew what he was doing. It was clear that he didn't know what he was saying, and his lips weren't moving in sync with the words.
Best to stay silent and solemn, I think, in that kind of
100%, 100%. Yeah, in that. Yes, I'm so dignified. I won't even sing along. However, you know, Nigeria is in the place where it is not because of these players' choices as to go and wait for England, the England call up before they choose Nigeria. It's in the state where it is because it's not more attractive than an England call up, even for those players who struggle to get into the England team, who think, let me wait till the next World Cup and see if I can get in then.
Do you want to go?
No, whoever wants to go, you take it.
I heard a deep breath there, so I was holding off for a second.
Joe?
All you.
Okay, yeah, it's as you say, it's a systematic problem. It didn't happen overnight. We're seeing, it's like atomic habits, 1%, 1%, 1%, and now we're seeing the decline. This didn't start now. We're able to paper over cracks, as I mentioned before, because of the caliber of player. But suddenly the quality across the continent is so good that you can't afford to make these same mistakes. Once upon a time, it was Eto's Cameroon. It was certain countries that would always give you problems, would always be the creme de la creme. Drogba, yeah, sorry, Cote d'Ivoire were always up there. Now, the caliber of football from countries like Cape Verde, Mali has risen so much that you will be punished. Lesotho are ranked 152nd in the world, and we couldn't beat them. You couldn't imagine uttering that sentence 10 years ago. And now that's our reality. As I mentioned before, Benin, we'd never lost to ever. They've beaten us now. We're like Man United almost, the Man United of Africa. 2013 was the last time we won a title, and it's really been downhill since. And until there's institutional reform, because you can't name many serious footballing nations that have had a national stadium abandoned before because of poor upkeep. And that is the reality. The national stadium is not in Lagos anymore because it was not maintained to an appropriate standard. Now they play in Akwa Ibom sometimes. There's the national stadium in Abuja, and it's, yeah. There's a laundry list of issues with Nigerian football.
So Atolani just mentioned a few things that I want to bring out a little bit. So he mentioned Lesotho. I think we have to mention that yesterday, match day 8, they finally got eliminated. Like, they survived until match day 8 of this qualification campaign, which is amazing. So well done to them. And then he briefly mentioned Cape Verde, and what a story. I mean, they are so close to getting their maiden qualification to the World Cup. It's fantastic. They beat Cameroon yesterday in Praia. Did the job at home. They've got a 95% chance to reach the World Cup now. They've got a 4-point lead over Cameroon in the group. 2 games left to go. It's insane. They'll be the second smallest nation to qualify for the World Cup ever if they do it. Iceland obviously being the first. But yeah, if Cape Verde does it, they'll be the second smallest nation to ever qualify for a World Cup. And we have to mention, I think, Dylan Livramento, who plays for Casa Pia in Portugal. He just moved there. He was at Hellas Verona in Italy before. Still fairly recent addition to the team. They only brought him in last year, but he's kind of one of these diaspora players that we've been talking about during this episode. He's been huge. He popped up with 2 goals against Angola earlier in qualification, and then yesterday he was the one that scored the winner, the only goal in the game for Cape Verde to put them in this position. So fascinating stories coming from Africa.
Look,
I'm not sure if you guys, sorry to interject, I'm not sure if you guys saw that goal, but Andre Onana, I'm not sure what goes through his head sometimes, because I'm a goalkeeper, and one of my friends messaged me from Loughborough saying, I think you can still go pro, because if Onana's banging around, you must have a good shot. Because I've never seen a keeper just stay on his line and essentially just open the hole. Livramento could have passed it into the net and he would have scored. Ended up being a really good finish, but I just don't know what goes through his head. From a keeper that won Champions League best keeper of the season 2 years ago, I've never seen a decline this rapid. We saw Edouard Mendy sort of start making mistakes after he won in 2021, but it wasn't this sharp. And Mendy's issues were obvious in terms of ball playing, etc. Onana's overconfident, and then the saving part just isn't happening either. And I'm quite lenient with goalkeepers because James Trafford, for instance, against Spurs, mistakes do happen. but nothing seems to be clicking for him. It's just going from bad to worse. So I just need to add that in, because the goal they won the game with, I was watching the highlight. It was I think it was from a set piece they countered, and he's running through on goal. I'm like, why is Onana not in the frame yet? Why is he not? And it pans, and he's standing on his line. Yeah, and it's incredible stuff for all the wrong reasons.
And that's a good way of describing it as well. Look, we're coming almost to the end of this conversation. We've got some questions. Let's rattle through these questions from Jeremy. That Cape Verde match made me remember why we love football so much. The whole second half and the post-match celebrations were incredible. Tell me more.
They stormed the field, all the fans after the game. So, there's a video. I think we put it on our timeline. You can go check that out. But yeah, once the final whistle went, everybody just rushed the field. So there's all these Cape Verde, fans, and they're all dancing, and there's flares, and there's a big celebration.
Yeah, we did love to rush the field when we were kids. I must admit, I've been on a few pitches myself, but I'm a grown-up man now. Couldn't possibly do that. Daniel in the States sends us a note and says, Nigeria national team staying at a New England bed and breakfast would make a fun movie. They did, didn't they, Atolani? Didn't they have to stay at a bed and breakfast in New England, or is Daniel just having fun there?
I'm not sure if they did. I remember there was one of the qualifiers where a game had to be postponed because they were kept in the airport for, I think, 9-10 hours on end. That's the biggest catastrophe I've heard. I'm not sure about the bed and breakfast.
Against Libya, right? I think that was the Libya.
It was, yeah. It was atrocious stuff.
Joe says Jamaican footballers also suffered post 98, the 98 World Cup in France, by not being able to attract the British diaspora. I'm not sure about that one. Wes Morgan's generation were never truly tapped into. Jamaica could have been World Cup regulars if they had been. Yeah, I think you have a point. I think he has a point there. That Jamaica team of 98, bar one member, I seem to remember, of the squad, were all sort of, well, not playing in Europe. They were certainly playing elsewhere for most of the time. One or two of them were playing. No, I might have that wrong, actually. Apologies, but I think he makes a point that I can't remember if I'm right or wrong on that one. Never mind that. There's another one that I wanted to get to as well. Guys, what would be the possibility of seeing Suriname play Netherlands in the same way we saw Trinidad and Tobago against England back in 2026?
Yeah, that's interesting prospect. What is the possibility? I don't know. I don't have an exact number for you, but I think the chances are decent. Suriname is definitely in the conversation to still qualify. And like we mentioned earlier, they've had a really good start to their qualification. I think Netherlands is a team that I kind of had pegged in my notes for this episode. If we had time to talk about briefly, I don't know. They don't look that great. Like I think Koeman has some work to do. But that's a side story for another time, perhaps. So, yeah, what is the possibility? It's definitely a possibility. It's definitely a possibility. It would be something. I think, too, Netherlands, Indonesia is also a possibility, which would be interesting as well.
I would love to be in Amsterdam if Suriname qualified to play against the Netherlands. There would be some divided loyalties, not least. But it would just be an amazing time, I think, to be there.
Yeah.
And it's just down the road.
Netherlands, Curaçao as well, I think would be another one too. So the Dutch diaspora is far ranging.
Yeah, well, yeah, they can blame themselves for that. It's not my fault. This question for you, Tim, from Luciano. Do you see a crazy, out of control sense of entitlement on some Brazil players like Bruno Guimaraes?
It's hard to live up to that tradition, isn't it? It's hard. I mean, Carlo Ancelotti knows, for example, that his success will be winning the World Cup next year. Failure is anything else. And in Brazil, even academic texts, they talk about World Cups that Brazil won and World Cups that Brazil lost, as if it's like heads or tails, when there are lots of other teams who also want to win. So sometimes I think that attitude does seep through. And they're hurting because it's been a long, long time. And 2002 was the last time that they won the thing. That's going to be 24 years ago. So I think it's a mixture between a sense of entitlement and a sense of things aren't going as well as they should be. I think that's very present with England as well sometimes. But we've only won the World Cup once, and they've won it 5 times. So perhaps they're more entitled to a sense of entitlement than we are.
Yeah, as this is something of a funeral procession for Nigeria, Atolani, you might want to answer these 2 questions. They're not directly aimed at you, but nevertheless, I think you're the best qualified person. First of all, from Pesky B2, is it more painful to see that Ghana might qualify? Nigeria not qualifying, but Ghana qualifying, for Nigerian football fans?
I don't think so. The Ghana-Nigeria relationship is the epitome of love-hate, because we can pick on Ghana, but no one else should. It's that kind of thing. They're your brothers, essentially. When they got to the quarterfinal of the World Cup, I was only 8 years old, but I wanted them to go far. I think I cried that day after the Suarez handball. So I don't have any issue.
I was in Ghana, and you weren't the only one who was crying, by the way, and demanding that Suarez should be jailed immediately, if not hung, drawn, and quartered as well. The second question, Tim, you might want to help Atolani on this one, because I will get your thoughts, Atolani. But Jeremy says, is this proof that Ghanaian jollof rice is superior? You see, Atolani said it's love-hate. We'll come on to the hate bit in a second. But love-hate? Atolani?
I thought I was leaving it for Tim first.
Yeah, let's go for Tim.
I can't possibly comment.
Please,
this is why we're hesitant to give Ghana their flowers, because you give them an inch and they take a mile. I just had Nigerian jollof for lunch, and there is, footballing wise, you may have the upper hand, even though you can't beat us when it comes to head, but that's a different story. Nigerian jollof will forever be clear.
100%. Honestly, I went all over Ghana looking for anything to match us, because I'd heard so much from Ghanaians. Oh, Ghanaian jollof rice. I was willing to give it a go, and I did go. And I tried one. Not sure if I got the right place there. Tried another. And still, there must be something better than this. I kept going and going and going. And then people told me, no, that is it. You've been eating it. That's Ghanaian. And I'm like, I came all this way, and all you fed me was rice with a little bit of spice. Yeah, I'm in a flipping laugh. Jollof takes much more than that. On that somewhat partisan note, I think it's time to call it a day, a pod. Thank you both very much for joining us. Joe, always a pleasure, Joe Gould. And just remind us, how can we join you for your podcast on the window?
Yeah, so we're on all the big podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, et cetera. We will be recording our review show sometime in the next couple of days, hopefully tomorrow night, and that'll go up soon. And yeah, you can follow us on X at Window INTL Pod.
And Atolani, you do a pod as well. How can we join you?
I do. My Instagram's actually just been disabled, so I have to give you my Twitter and TikTok at the moment, which is just my name, ATOLANIOYEWUMI. We'll have a rebrand soon enough. I'll figure out some next steps. But yeah, was devastating news when I woke up yesterday morning and saw my account was disabled.
I used to have to spell my name to everybody until Emmanuel Adebayo went to Arsenal. And here's the joke about it. I went to a store and they said, right, can I have your name? And I said, it's Adebayo, A-D. I know how to spell Adebayo. And I'm saying, no, you don't. And said, of course I do. It's A-D-E-B-A-Y-O-R. I'm like, without the R. That's the problem. And although I told my uncle that, these guys from Benin are, because he's from, or was he from Benin or Togo? Togo, apologies. And well, he had not long to go in terms of playing for Arsenal, did he? And I said, even though these Togons have taken our name and added an R, my uncle said, oh no, Dotun, don't say that, or because that is the original spelling of our name. Thank you all very much. This has been the Brazilian Shirt Name Podcast. See you all next time. And tomorrow, of course, we're here from, what time are we here from tomorrow, Tim? 5 o'clock? Sorry, you muted yourself. Our typical Brazilian. Oh, this is what he says to me every single time.
Yeah, I think it's 3 UK time. So an hour earlier than today.
3 o'clock UK time. Thank you. We got there in the end. Tim, thank you very much. Everybody, thank you. It's been excellent.
Get in touch with the Brazilian Shirt Name Podcast on Twitter at BrazilShirtPod, or you can email us BrazilianShirtNamePod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, rate and tell a friend. The Brazilian Shirt Name Podcast is an 1129 production.